The morning was quiet, like so many mornings had been since they passed. The sun filtered through the curtains in soft, golden beams, casting a peaceful glow across the room. I sat at the kitchen table, staring out the window at the garden. Our parents' garden, though it no longer seemed like ours. It hadn't for a long time. It had been nearly 2 years since their sudden deaths. 2 years, and yet the house still felt empty, as if their presence was somehow etched into the walls, lingering despite their absence. It was strange, that feeling. The way a place could hold on to a memory, even when the people who lived there were gone. I was lost in my thoughts when the doorbell rang. I jolted slightly, surprised. I hadn't been expecting anyone. With no real friends left in the town, most of them had drifted away after the funeral. The only visitors now were the occasional bill collectors or the delivery people who brought supplies for the house. But this time the package was small, square, and wrapped in plain brown paper. I opened it slowly, not sure what to expect. Inside I found a thick, white envelope with my name neatly written on the front. My heart skipped a beat as I read the words. To Emma, Daniel, and Lily. The handwriting was unfamiliar, and yet there was something strangely comforting about it. Something that made my hands tremble, even as I carefully slit the envelope open. Inside was a letter, a legal letter, its contents brief but to the point. I read it twice to make sure I understood. To our beloved children. As you know, we have been called away from this world far too soon. In our absence, there is one thing we wish to leave behind for you. An inheritance. It is our hope that you will care for it as we did and, above all, that it will bring you together. We trust that you will keep it in the family. Please find the enclosed documents regarding the house and its contents. We have faith that you will know what to do. With all our love. Your parents. There it was. The inheritance. It wasn't much, a house, some property, and a modest sum of money. But for us, it was everything. My fingers lingered on the paper, pressing it to my chest as if that might somehow bring them back. I read the letter again, my mind racing. I hadn't expected this. Oh, I had assumed the house would be sold, the money divided, and the rest of our family history forgotten. But this was something different. It was a call to responsibility, to keep everything together, to hold on to what was left. I glanced toward the hallway. Daniel was there, standing at the edge of the living room. His arms folded. His face unreadable as always. Lily, always the first to break the silence, stood beside him, her expression uncertain. Emma! Daniel's voice broke through the quiet. What's that? I hesitated, trying to collect my thoughts. It's from them. I glanced at the letter again. It felt heavier than it should. It's the inheritance. Lily's eyes widened, a spark of interest flickering. Inheritance? She asked, her voice rising with a hint of disbelief. I didn't know they had anything left. I shook my head, unable to fully answer her question. I didn't know either. Our parents had always been private about their finances, but this was more than just money. It was a legacy. Final request. Daniel's eyes lingered on the paper in my hands. So, what now? His voice was flat, detached. There was always something distant about Daniel. I'd never been able to quite read him, even when we were children. It was like he existed in another world, a world I wasn't invited into. Lily's gaze shifted between us, waiting for me to speak. But I didn't know what to say. I hadn't expected anything like this. In a way, it felt like an intrusion, like they were asking us to take on something we weren't prepared for. And yet, I couldn't help but feel a pull. This was ours. This was our parents' last gift to us, and somehow, it felt as if we were being given one last chance to fix everything that had gone wrong. I don't know, I finally said, my voice quiet. I'll look over the documents. We should probably talk about it together. The days that followed were a blur of details. The envelope from our parents, the legal documents, the house. It all seemed so much more significant than I had expected, and I found myself spending hours alone in the study, reading through the will and papers, trying to understand exactly what we had inherited. But there was no real time to process it. Not with Daniel and Lily. We had to meet to discuss what to do. Our parents had entrusted us with this, and we needed to make decisions. At least that's what I told myself. But deep down, I wondered if any of us were truly ready for this responsibility. The three of us had always been different. Daniel, the quiet one, the one who never seemed to care about anything. Lily, the one who felt too much, who always wore her emotions on her sleeve. And me. I'd always been the one who tried to hold everything together. The one who tried to make sure that things didn't fall apart. But despite my best efforts, I felt the cracks growing wider between us with each passing year. I sat at the kitchen table once again, staring at the house's deed in front of me. The place was huge, a sprawling old farmhouse on the outskirts of town. It was in need of repairs none of us were particularly prepared to take on. But it had been theirs, and now it was ours. The weight of it settled in my chest, heavy and uncomfortable. Lily was the first to arrive. She burst through the door like a gust of wind, her presence filling up the room immediately. She didn't even knock, she never did. "Hey," she greeted me, pulling up a chair and sitting down without invitation. "What's the plan?" I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I'm still trying to figure that out." Her eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and impatience. "Well, we can't just sit here forever. It's ours now, right? We need to decide what we're going to do with it." I nodded slowly, my mind still racing. "I think we need to go over everything together. It's not just about the house. There's the money, the property, everything they left behind." Lily leaned forward, her elbows resting on the table. "I'm not worried about the money. You know how I feel about all that. But the house, I get it. It's huge. It's our history, our family. But do we really need all that space? Can we even afford to fix it up?" I hesitated, unsure of how to answer her. The house had been a symbol of everything our parents had worked for. The memories of family dinners, of laughter and arguments that echoed through the halls, those were the things that lingered in the house, even though the walls were starting to crumble. But Lily wasn't wrong. The place was falling apart, and none of us had the means to restore it. Just then the door opened again and Daniel walked in. His eyes were distant, his face unreadable as always. He glanced at the table at Lily and me, but didn't say anything right away. "Daniel," I said, trying to meet his gaze. "We need to talk about the house. The inheritance." He nodded slowly, sitting down without a word. There was something about Daniel, something that made it difficult to understand what he was thinking. He had always been like this, a mystery even to those who knew him best. He wasn't the one to jump into discussions. He never had been. Lily, however, was already moving ahead. "So, what's the plan, Daniel? You're not saying anything. What do you think we should do?" Daniel looked at her, his gaze steady but unfocused. "We'll figure it out," he said quietly, his voice as detached as ever. "But we don't need to rush. We have time." Lily's face tightened, the impatience in her eyes growing. "Time? We've already wasted so much of it. We've let this place sit here for months. Do you really think we can just let it fall apart?" I could feel the tension building between them, that familiar undercurrent of frustration. I had seen it before, in the quiet moments when they thought no one was watching. There was something unspoken between them, a friction that neither of them acknowledged, but both of them felt. I had no idea how long it had been there, but I could see it now, clearer than ever. It was like a shadow hanging over everything. I couldn't take it any longer. "We're not going to solve anything by arguing," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "We need to stick together. We've been given this, and we need to figure it out together." There was a brief silence, the weight of my words settling in the space between us. Daniel didn't respond immediately, but I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, a recognition perhaps that I was right. But then, just as quickly, the distance between us all returned. He leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed, staring at the ceiling as though he was somewhere else entirely. Lily shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her gaze flickering from me to Daniel and back again. I could tell she was frustrated but also unsure. She wasn't a person who liked to be stuck in indecision. She needed answers and fast. "I don't want to drag this out," Lily said, breaking the silence. "I'm going to be blunt. What's going on between you two? You're acting weird. Both of you." The question hung in the air, unexpected and cutting through the tension like a knife. My heart skipped a beat, and I could feel the blood rush to my face. I looked at Daniel, but he remained silent, his expression unreadable. Lily's eyes darted between us, waiting for some kind of reaction. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to get into it. Not here, not now. But the words were out, and there was no taking them back. Daniel finally broke his silence. His voice soft, almost too soft. "We're fine, Lily," he said, his tone unconvincing. "We'll figure it out. Let's just focus on what we need to do now." I could feel the weight of the unspoken between them pressing down, but Lily didn't push further. Instead, she turned back to me, her eyes hard with determination. "So, what do you suggest we do?" I swallowed, unsure of what to say next. I wasn't sure I knew anymore. The house, the inheritance, it was becoming something bigger than any of us had anticipated. And the silence between my siblings was growing thicker, more suffocating. I wanted to solve it, wanted to fix everything, but I could feel it slipping through my fingers. "I don't know," I said quietly. "But we need to make a decision soon. We can't keep avoiding it." Lily nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She wasn't just worried about the house. She was worried about us, about what was happening beneath the surface. And so was I. The days passed in a blur. We met, discussed, argued, and circled back to the same issues over and over. The house, the money, what to do with it all. But there was something else, something unspoken, a tension that had been growing since the letter had arrived. I tried to focus on the practical aspects. We had to decide what to do with the house, whether to sell it or fix it up. The money wasn't as much of a concern. None of us had ever been particularly interested in wealth or possessions, but the house. The house was another matter. It was the last tangible thing we had of our parents. The last piece of the life they had built for us. But every time I looked at Daniel and Lily, I felt the same question burning at the back of my mind. What's going on between you two? It was there, under the surface, in the way they avoided each other's eyes or the silence that stretched too long between them. I hadn't said anything, not yet, but I could feel the weight of the unspoken growing heavier with each passing day. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about them. One evening, I found myself sitting alone in the study, surrounded by papers, trying to make sense of everything. The house had needed repairs for years. Our parents had never been able to afford much more than the basics, but they had worked hard to make sure we had a roof over our heads. Now it was my turn to decide whether that roof would stay or fall. I ran my fingers over the worn edges of the deed, feeling the cold paper beneath my fingertips. But I couldn't focus on it. My mind kept drifting to Daniel and Lily. They were acting strange. At first I had brushed it off as stress. After all, we were all under pressure. But now I wasn't so sure. There were moments, small, fleeting moments, when I saw them looking at each other in a way that wasn't right. I wasn't naive. I knew there was something between them, but I didn't know what it was. And I wasn't sure I wanted to know. A soft knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. I looked up to see Lily standing in the doorway, her face drawn but determined. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice quiet. I stood up, brushing the papers aside. "What's on your mind?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though my heart was already racing. Lily stepped inside and closed the door behind her. She hesitated for a moment, her eyes darting between the floor and me, but then she took a deep breath and looked up. "It's about Daniel." I felt a strange knot form in my stomach. "What about him?" She glanced toward the door, as though making sure no one was listening. "I don't know how to say this," she began slowly, her voice shaky. "But there's something going on between us. I can't keep pretending it's not there." Froze. My heart skipped a beat, my thoughts scattering like leaves in the wind. I didn't know what to say. Lily. I began, but I couldn't find the words. She kept talking, her voice tight. I don't know what it is, but I've felt it for a while now. And it's not just the house. It's everything. The way he looks at me. The way we've been acting around each other. I can't keep pretending I don't feel it. I took a step back, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to reach out, to reassure her that we would figure this out. But the other part of me, the part that had been watching them, sensing the tension between them, felt a pang of dread. I didn't want to tell you, Lily continued, her voice barely a whisper. But I can't hold it in anymore. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to feel. I don't even know if he feels the same way, but I can't stop thinking about it. I didn't know what to say. My mind was clouded with questions I wasn't ready to ask. What are you telling me? What does this mean? Do you think he feels the same way? I asked quietly, trying to steady my breath. Lily's eyes filled with confusion, as if she didn't have the answer herself. I don't know, she admitted. But I think he might. And that's what scares me. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to scream, to demand answers. But I knew deep down that I couldn't force the truth out of her. Not now, not when she was already so uncertain herself. Finally I spoke, my voice softer than I intended. Have you talked to him about it? Lily shook her head. No, I don't know how. I'm not even sure I should. It feels wrong. I sat down again, my hands trembling as I tried to process what she had just said. The room felt too small, the walls closing in on me. So, what are you going to do? I asked, my voice distant, almost lost in the chaos of my thoughts. Lily didn't answer immediately. She looked at the door, then back at me, her eyes brimming with uncertainty. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know what I should do. I don't know what any of us should do. The weight of Lily's confession lingered in the air like a storm cloud, and I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was on the verge of collapsing. The house, the inheritance, the unspoken words between us all. It was too much. I was exhausted from trying to hold everything together, from trying to find a solution for all of us. And now, with this new, fragile truth hanging between Daniel and Lily, I didn't know where to turn. It had been 2 days since Lily told me, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I replayed her words in my head over and over, each time hoping for a different outcome, a different answer. But there was no escaping the fact that something had shifted between them, and that it could never go back to the way it was. That morning I woke up earlier than usual. The house was quiet, a strange stillness hanging over it. I had never truly noticed how lonely it was here until now. There was always something missing, something we hadn't been able to fill. I stood by the window, staring out at the garden, watching the sunlight break through the branches of the trees. The house seemed peaceful, even beautiful, but I knew it was just an illusion. Beneath the surface, it was crumbling, just like the relationships we were trying to hold together. I didn't want to face Daniel, but I knew I had to. I found him sitting on the porch, his face buried in a book, the same way he always buried himself in distractions when he didn't want to think about anything. He didn't look up when I stepped outside, didn't acknowledge my presence. But I wasn't going to let this go on any longer. Daniel, I said, my voice tight with the words I wasn't sure I was ready to speak. He didn't react. I took a deep breath and walked closer, sitting beside him. We need to talk. He finally looked up, his expression unreadable, but his eyes were distant, just like they always were when something was bothering him. I could see the lines of tension in his face, and I knew he was avoiding me. He was avoiding the truth. I know what's going on, I said, my voice soft but firm. I know about you and Lily. His gaze flickered, and for a moment I thought he might deny it, but then he exhaled sharply and looked away. You shouldn't have to know, he muttered. His voice wasn't angry, more resigned, like he had already given up on trying to hide the truth from me. I swallowed, trying to keep my emotions in check. I'm not blind, Daniel. Can see it. I can see the way you two are with each other. You think I haven't noticed? He was quiet for a long time, and I almost thought he wouldn't answer. But then slowly he spoke, his voice low and full of regret. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, he said, his words carrying a weight I hadn't expected. I never meant for things to get this complicated. I looked at him, searching his face for any sign of real remorse. But there was something else there, something darker, something I couldn't quite place. It was like he was hiding behind a mask, just as he always did. But the cracks were starting to show. Do you love her? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. Daniel didn't answer right away. He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes filled with frustration. I don't know, he muttered. I don't know what I feel anymore. I felt my chest tighten at his words. But you're willing to risk everything for it. For something you can't even define. He met my gaze then, and for a moment I saw something in his eyes. Something raw, something real. I don't want to hurt you, he said quietly. Or Lily. Or anyone. But his voice was so soft, so full of uncertainty. I knew he was only half truthful. He didn't know how to fix what he had broken. He didn't even know if it could be fixed. I stood up abruptly, the air suddenly thick with everything unsaid. I don't know if you can fix it, Daniel, I said, the words cutting through me like glass. But you need to figure it out. Not just for me or for Lily, but for yourself. You can't keep hiding behind this wall. It's not fair to anyone. He didn't reply, but his silence spoke volumes. Later that afternoon, I found myself alone in the living room, staring at the fireplace. The room felt cold, despite the warmth of the afternoon sun outside. I could hear the distant hum of Lily's voice in the hallway, talking on the phone. But I couldn't focus on her right now. My thoughts were too clouded with everything Daniel had said, and everything he hadn't said. The truth was, I didn't know what to do anymore. I wanted to fix everything, to put the pieces back together. But there were too many pieces scattered in the dark, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't make them fit. I felt a presence before I heard the footsteps. Lily appeared in the doorway, standing there with a hesitant expression on her face. I could tell she was afraid of what I would say, of what I would do now that I knew the truth. Emma, she said, her voice soft. Can we talk? I nodded, gesturing for her to sit down beside me. She hesitated for a moment, and then did, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. I told you what happened, she said quietly. But I don't know what to do now. I don't know if I can keep living like this. I looked at her, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes. For all her bravado, for all her strength, I could see how broken she was by this. How lost she felt. And in a way, I couldn't blame her. This wasn't just about a secret, this was about everything we had built, everything we had relied on falling apart. Do you love him? I asked, the question hanging between us like an unsaid truth. Lily blinked, her breath catching in her throat. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know if I even understand what love is anymore. My heart broke a little at her words, but I didn't know how to comfort her. How could I when I felt just as lost? And then she said it, the question I had been avoiding for days. Emma, what are we supposed to do now? With the house? With everything? I didn't have an answer. I didn't know what to say. The truth was, I didn't know who any of us were anymore. I didn't know where we were going or what we were even fighting for. I just knew that we couldn't keep pretending. I don't know, I whispered. But we'll figure it out. Together. We have to.